Exactly. Yeah.
Give yourself some time. Be realistic.
I try and set the bar very low. Jordan, I've been getting a lot of DMs. People saying, "Yeah, where do you get those beats from?" Somebody DM me yesterday that said, "Sometimes I tune in the beginning just to hear the beats." I said Jordan Klein wrote all of these and produced them all. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran, breaking down a barn burner today. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. But guess what? It doesn't matter if it was a 12-point total. We all got the same players to choose from. We all got the same game. Anyway, hit me up at Loughy_D, Loughy_D. And while you're there, say hello to player Q DFS. Neil Orfield taking down $92,000 just the other day in a showdown contest just like this. What's going on, bro?
Yeah, hoping to do the same. And I agree with you. I prefer games with high scores in general to watch, but these games, you have the same opportunity to make a lot of money. So these can be a lot of fun for showdown slates. And honestly, if there's not a lot of scoring, that just means more teams are live in the fourth quarter. So it can be more fun in some ways. For
sure. I sometimes think that it is. And listen, we all know the truth. The joy in DFS and the joy in sports betting is you can take any sporting event, any game, no matter how good or bad, and make it worth watching. Because quite frankly, if you're not a Browns fan, if you're not a Steelers fan, you don't play fantasy or DFS or betting, I would find better things to do tonight.
Right. Why would you watch this game if you don't have money on it or team allegiance in it?
Exactly.
I like watching football, but if I'm going to spend 3 hours, you can watch a pretty good movie in that time.
Yeah. And I'm actually excited for this game. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can assure you on the East Coast, not staying up till finish a game till 11:30. So
yeah,
not going to happen.
I mean,
but
it
is fun. Yeah, it is funny. I was actually thinking about this the other day, and you said you like football too. Before I really did any of this, before I even got into any like standard, home league redraft fantasy football, I was thinking back, and I still watched and loved football, and like was always diving into the numbers. So it kind of comes with the territory.
I'm being told that I need to turn my camera off and back on. It's out of focus. So bear with me for 1 second.
You look like a ghost.
Interesting. And
no,
just
you
doing
look
this,
fine. You look perfect. You look perfectly fine to me. I was just kidding.
Okay. Is it just Jordan's eyesight?
It could be Jordan's. Yeah, could be.
All right.
Jordan, you see him okay now? I think he looks fine. Okay. What exactly is the issue here? It's just his face, man.
That's just my look. I'm a blurry guy.
People always describe me. I'm like, do you know Neil Orfield, dude that just won 92,000? Like, yeah, the blurry guy.
All right. Chad is agreeing with him. Jordan is all right. Sorry. Oh, 1 second. All
right. That's so weird because to me, it actually doesn't look that bad. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. There goes Neil. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. We got almost 700 people watching. There we go. Okay, so Jordan, I should trust Jordan more often. The guy's been doing this a little while now. I should trust him.
And renowned DJ in LA too.
What's that?
He's a renowned DJ in LA.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, he comes up with all these beats before the shows.
I know.
Talented guy.
Someone's going to come after us for this royalty-free music. Like, no, Jordan Klein didn't write that. Anyway, I can also trust that you guys will get us above 100 likes. I mean, with 700 people watching right now, that ratio, we can do better. You know the drill. Atone for your sins, my friends. Help us appease the YouTube overlords and stay here with the lights on. And if you want, hit that subscribe button as well. Appreciate all you guys who do that right on the way in. It does help us a lot. All right. There we go. 108. We're cruising. Ready to talk some football, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first up, Pittsburgh Steelers, Mitch Trubisky. It's not exactly a battle between two good quarterbacks here today. I actually want to ask you about the weather and get your opinion on this. I'm seeing 19 to 21 mile per hour winds between two quarterbacks that look like they're playing in wind, even if they're in LA. Is this something that concerns you today? And are you factoring it into your to how you're setting lineups, given that we only have one game to choose from?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure that I'm factoring in that much. If I am going to factor it in, it would be I'd probably give a little boost to Kareem Hunt, Naji Harris. Guys who are catching the ball short are probably going to be, get a little bit of a boost there. Maybe running backs in general. Maybe the teams try to keep it on the ground. Like, remember the Belichick game, just where the Pats didn't throw it the entire game? That could theoretically happen.
And killed the Bills.
I don't think that these wins are bad enough that I'm going to factor it in too much. It's not that kind of a game at 20 miles per hour.
I was watching the Eagles game with my father-in-law the other day in the basement, and I was telling him about that game. Oh no, my brother-in-law was there too. I was telling him about the game where they were warming up, and you actually had, I think it was Bass, right, kicking field goals, and they would like stop in midair and go backwards. Remember that? That
was insane. That was just the weirdest game. I don't know why they even played that game.
And they really tried throwing. McDermott really tried throwing, not the Patriots, and they ended up killing them. So yeah, that was insane. I don't think it'll be like that, but this is definitely one of those games that it could affect it between these two guys. Would you say, and yeah, Steven, I agree. 20, I would say 20 matters. I definitely would. I don't, again, it's not the Bills Patriots game, but it probably matters. Would you say, Sterling, when the in-laws are in town, laughing gets so. No, my in-laws live 2 minutes down the road. They're good people. They drink too. All right, so Mitch Trubisky, Naji Harris, Deontay Johnson. I guess at this rate we have to be considering pretty much anybody here, even though the passing game is far from impressive. Like you have to be looking at Pickens, right? We have to be looking at pretty much anybody in this offense. Freiermuth's actually been pretty solid. Where do you want to start? You want to start at quarterback, wide receiver, running back, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, we can start at quarterback. It looks like Mitch Trubisky is going a little bit under owned in our tools, coming in at 8.9% owned in the captain spot, 10.7% optimal in the captain spot, 43.3% owned in the utility spot, 48.9% optimal in the utility spot. And I made a video this morning, and I do it for every Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football slate, where I show people kind of how I set up my fantasy cruncher. And it's obviously relevant for people who are using fantasy cruncher, but it can be relevant to hand builders too, to kind of, because I talk about, the reason that I'm doing things. And Mitch Trubisky, one group that I set was, if I have Mitch Trubisky in the captain spot, I'm going to require at least one pass catcher and give boost to all of his pass catchers so that I'm more likely to get, 2 or 3 of his pass catchers in there. And the reason I do that is because those pass catchers, for every passing play, the receiver scores more points than the quarterback. So generally, if Mitch Trubisky is focusing on just one player, they're going to outscore him. If it's, one player gets all the volume, they're going to outscore him. So I like Mitch Trubisky as a captain today. If you do put him in that captain spot, I would recommend having at least 2 of these Pittsburgh receivers in the flex spots.
Okay. There's an interesting wrinkle in this game when it comes to the Steelers and when it comes to the Browns. The 2 of them, I guess you could say. On one hand, and I don't know, for those of you Steelers fans in chat, let me know. But the sentiment that I see is that they want Matt Canada gone. They want their offensive coordinator gone. And in Cleveland, I said it this morning, if they could bring back public execution, the first head on the block might be Joe Woods, defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. That meltdown last week was horrible. Almost 2,300 games consecutive teams won up 13 points with 2 minutes remaining in a game until that Cleveland Jets game. Neil.
Oh, it was that game. That's right. Yeah, that was absolutely nuts. How do you lose that game?
Incredible. That 2,229 teams had been in that situation the last time it was done. It was that long ago.
And it was it was Nick Chubb's fault too, because if Nick Chubb had just ran out of bounds instead of scoring that third touchdown, they could have just ran out the clock.
Kneeled down or slid down.
Kneeled down. Yeah. Not running. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. He's not Miles Sanders running out of bounds when they need to run the clock.
Right.
But a lot of it was a communication breakdown. And Matt Gajewski and I discussed this at length this morning. If you look at personnel, if you look at talent on the defense, Cleveland's easily a top 10 defense. So does Joe Woods fix this today? Because my guess is he could be the first coordinator or coach fired this season if today goes really poorly for them, but particularly against Mitchell Trubisky. Or do they continue having these meltdowns in communication, in coverage, and Trubisky actually has a good game, as Joe Flacco did late in that contest last week. Really interesting spot because it could go one of two ways and it could swing heavy in either direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's more likely that the Cleveland defense is going to shut down the Steelers. Agreed. To some extent. The problem with taking that approach is the Steelers defense is getting a lot of ownership. So makes it a little bit harder to, write up a game script and make plays based on that assumption. They're getting 25% projected ownership in the utility spot, although they're under owned according to the boom bust tool. So they are optimal 31.6% of the time, the Browns defense. So it is kind of an interesting spot. This is also a spot, and I say this frequently on these shows, you can play both Mitch Trubisky and the Browns defense and hope that they largely shut him down. And then Trubisky just, one fluke play is all it takes for Trubisky and a wide receiver to put up a lot of points. So you can play them in the same lineup. It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot for the Steelers. Not a great quarterback to begin with. Do you think Mitch Trubisky is going to be the quarterback their next game, the starting quarterback?
It depends on what we see today, for sure. It could be Pickett. You're talking about a first round draft pick from 2022. It could be Pickett. Steven Leibowitz, who's always hanging out with us. What's up, Steven? I know he's in here again today. He was like, hey, if I'm playing 150 lineups, I might play a couple Kenny Pickett lineups.
If you're going to do it, this might not be the worst time to play a backup quarterback. I don't think I'm doing it today, but yeah, I don't totally hate the idea.
The problem with that is I would do it if, at halftime he could come in and I knew he had rushing upside, to where it's like, oh man, he racked up 70 rushing yards and they're just trying to get anything out of an anemic offense. But with the wind, I'm not sure, 2 quarters out of Kenny Pickett would be enough anyway. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it could be only because I think that this game is going to be so low scoring. The offenses could potentially be so bad that, just one play from a guy like Kenny Pickett might be enough. I think it's, more likely that a guy can get it done in a half of a game if the game isn't putting up any points anyway. So But yeah, it's a pretty weak, it's a pretty thin play. I'm probably not going to do it. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd say if you're playing 150 lineups, if you want to do a few, this isn't the worst, game to do it.
All right, couple super chats. Eric Trapp, thanks again, man. Where do we get Jordan's beats? I must know. Injected into my veins. Yeah, Jordan. First of all, how do you make these, and where can they find them?
I can't give up the secret recipe for these, but and I can't tell
you.
They
can find them at SoundStripe.
Tune into our shows, and you guys can listen to them all the time.
Yeah, we use SoundStripe, by the way. It's not a bad product. They got some good stuff. Wait till Halloween. I'm going to make Jordan play the spooky stuff. I make him play like Jingle Bell shit for Christmas. Brandon Victor, welcome to Team Stokastic, man. And no, Josh of Los Angeles, Awesemo did not pass away. We just changed the name. Everyone is still the same. Nothing changed but the name. And we were not sued by South Park. It's spelled different, and it has no relation to Awesemo 5000, which is actually right there, as you can see. I got the Cartman back there. You a South Park fan? Great.
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't watched every episode of South Park, but I've always enjoyed it when I do watch.
Oh, it's the best, man. All right. So you're saying basically, if you're playing Trubisky, you're going to boost the receivers. Are there any receivers you like on their own, like a Deontay Johnson or anybody, Chase Claypool, Freiermuth, anyone that stands out?
Several, especially on DraftKings where it is point per reception. I think that I'm going to be mixing and matching all of these guys. Deontay Johnson obviously is a stud. He's going to look great. He is the most expensive, but he's only owned in the captain spot 11.4% of the time, which looks a little bit under owned for Deontay Johnson. I'm high on Deontay. I'll probably be above the field there. Chase Claypool, a guy who has not been all that involved, and his price tag is just way down. 6,200 for Chase Claypool feels a little bit low to me. He's only in the captain spot. We're projecting for 6.4% ownership for Claypool in the captain spot, optimal 9% of the time. And then the utility spot, you owned 29.9% of the time, optimal 34.6% of the time. Chase Claypool is just one of those guys who can have a spike week, and the price is right. So I really like Claypool. The Muth, I hope the Muth gets loose tonight. 5.3% projected ownership in the captain spot, optimal 5.7% of the time. In the utility spot, 25.9% looking neutral there. But I always like Freiermuth. keep on going down. George Pickens he hasn't gotten that many fewer. His routes run is only like 10 behind the leaders on the Steelers. He's been running plenty of routes so far. He's only 4,800, which reflects he has not been productive with his routes, but that's going to change at some point, and I would like to be there when it changes. So I'm going to be definitely above the field on George Pickens, getting 1.2% projected ownership in the captain spot, 15.5% projected ownership in the utility spot. Sign me up for all of the George Pickens tonight.
It does seem kind of crazy that what's his utility ownership?
15%. I just lost it. Let's see here.
That seems very low.
15.5% projected utility. I would guess it's going to come a little bit higher than that, but probably not that high. He hasn't been that productive. He's a rookie. A lot of casual fans might not know much about him, or might not know that he's been on the field as much as he has been. So could be kind of low.
He hasn't been great yet, but nobody really has in this offense.
Exactly.
They've all been. Deontay Johnson's been fine, and he's clearly the best player on this team. But still, Pickens is, pretty early draft pick. I would assume they're going to want to try and get something out of him. It's a matter of whether or not Mitch Trubisky can get in the ball. And someone was saying Trubisky played in Chicago, he can play and win. I'm not sure who you were speaking to, whether it was Mitch or myself or chat. It's not really the point. I mean, like I said, and I was being serious. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was playing in wind every day anyway. He just hasn't been good.
Maybe the wind will help him. Maybe it'll correct where he throws the ball.
That's a good point. Huh. He'll just throw. Okay. Yeah.
He throws a little wide left. The wind pushes it right.
Right. But the thing is, usually if that's happening, you're only throwing either wide left or wide right. So if he's got to be going a certain direction on the field, he's got to be facing one way, one end zone. So like he'll have two great quarters and then two terrible quarters where everything gets picked off.
Exactly. Which is better than usual, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. All right. What about, let's dive in the Freiermuth a little bit here. He's for a tight end. It's not like you're getting him at a massive discount. I mean, he's essentially the same price as Kareem Hunt. He's $800 more than Claypool on DraftKings, at least. He is targeted a lot though, which stands out to me as a guy where you say, all right, he's found the end zone. He did in week 1. We saw last year, he was a monster in like goal to go situations. Ben Roethlisberger targeted him frequently. And on the season, he has a pretty respectable target share of 24%. Johnson's at 31. Those guys make up 56% around of total targets. How do you feel about Pat Freiermuth today?
I like him a lot. He's a really talented tight end. As you said, he's run routes on 60 plays already this year. The team leaders for the Steelers at 75, both Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So he's lagging behind them by 15, but he's also been targeted 16 times, which is second on the team, if I remember correctly, behind Deontay Johnson. So he's just a guy that they want to use. He's obviously a red zone target. So I think that Pat Freiermuth and also being that big, maybe the win game kind of helps him. Maybe he's a bigger target. You want to throw the ball to your tight end a little bit more in a win game. So I think Pat Freiermuth makes a ton of sense today.
Okay. Yeah. He's run routes on, what is it?
60 plays.
Yeah. 77% of dropbacks for a tight end. You'll take that.
Yeah.
And he's going to get red zone looks. I like it. Is it? Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to add Zach Gentry is a guy that I have some interest in. So he's sort of he's the backup tight end in Pittsburgh. Probably won't have a ton of opportunities, but if we think, they want to throw to big guys in the wind, he's 6'8". He has run some routes so far this year. And honestly, I think this is the kind of slate. So on a lot of slates, if you're $3,000 and you just have a single touchdown for 5 yards, that's not going to be a big enough score to make it into the optimal. I think tonight is the kind of slate where if Zach Gentry just scores one touchdown and it's a 5-yard touchdown, that would potentially be enough to be in the optimal lineup, just because I don't think the scoring is going to be very high tonight. So he's a guy that I have interest in tonight that I might not most nights.
Couple super chats here. Teddy with the free super chat, member for 8 months. Yeah, if you're a member and you haven't used those free super chats yet, take advantage of it. You got the badges, you got the emojis, you get the survivor pool that we got going, but also the free super chats. Teddy said, "What's up, guys? Appreciate all the great content." Thank you, Teddy. Appreciate you too. Sam Pierce, David Bell. This is a fun one. All right, so David Bell or Jalen Warren, more fantasy points. I'm personally going to go with Bell here. Slot guy. If wind ends up being an issue, it might be tough to push the ball downfield. They might look to him more in the middle of the field. It's a tough call. Neither of these guys are particularly exciting, but I would go Bell in a situation like this. What about you, Neil?
I think I actually lean the other way, partially because of the wind. I think they're more likely to run the ball a little bit more, but it's not a strong feeling for me. I think Jaylen Warren just projects a little bit better than David Bell, but I really like David Bell from a DFS perspective. So I am going to be playing some David Bell today just because he's getting low ownership and he's cheaper than Jaylen Warren. I think that Jaylen Warren has at least the safer floor than David Bell. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if David Bell outscores, and this is a PPR on DraftKings. So, advantage to the receiver. But I think I lean slightly into Jaylen Warren.
It's fair. Look, Bell's not playing a lot of snaps either. So it's more or less, do you think that Warren can make anything of those opportunities? 3 or 4 carries, or maybe he gets more. But yeah, Naji Harris, though, that's a good segue into Naji Harris. And again, if Steelers fans are watching, I'm sure they've listened to their own radios and they've heard some people saying that, well, Naji's vision is off. He's not hitting the holes. Other people are saying that he doesn't trust the line. Other people are saying the line isn't blocking well enough, or, so many different things. And I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse here too. But this is probably the cheapest we've seen Naji in a showdown slate in a pretty long time, it feels like.
Yeah, so it's hard because, he is fairly cheap. He's also still the second most expensive player on the slate, and I think he has the 5th highest projection. So second most expensive, 5th highest projection. I was kind of expecting low ownership as a result, but we're not really seeing that. He's still getting a good amount of ownership. But in his favor, I would say the win might help Naji. Maybe these dump off passes are what really gets it done today, gets the ball moving for Pittsburgh, and Naji Harris would benefit a lot from that. But I mean, currently getting 10.9% projected ownership in the captain spot, coming in optimal in the captain spot 6.8% of the time, owning the utility spot 38.8 and optimal 40.4. So pretty neutral there. But yeah, I think that the ownership is fair on Naji Harris is basically what it comes down to for me. And I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. So if he has, 6, 7 receptions, just dump off passes, gets, 5 yards on each of them, he might get enough, even if he's not a great point per dollar play today. If he just gets a raw score through his PPR scoring, he could do well enough to be in the optimal. So I don't hate Naji today. He's not somebody that I'm looking to get like well over the field, because I think the field is, playing him about as much as they should be, at like 50% overall.
I think I agree with everything you're saying here. It's, on the surface, you look at it and you go, man, he's 2,200 cheaper than Nick Chubb, right? Which is kind of surprising. But at the same time, he hasn't produced. You can blame it on really whatever you want at this point, but it hasn't looked good. So I guess the reservations I have with Naji are, if the win is significant, does he get, 27 touches, Neil?
Exactly.
Right? Like there's a non-zero chance he sees 30 touches tonight or 30 looks.
Yep. And that's kind of what you're counting on. And as I was saying, I think that also benefits Jaylen Warren. Maybe they don't want to go to Naji every time. They just want to keep the ball on the ground or short passes. That could benefit both running backs, but Naji would obviously be the primary beneficiary there. So I think that is within the range of outcomes. He has looked so bad. 25 rushes this year for 72 yards so far.
Yeah, it's bad.
Not great. And he's only been targeted 8 times through 2 games, which is,
and his longest rush is 11 yards.
Yeah. He just has not looked good, but you can only pick players from this game. You can't pick players from other games. You got to find players you like somewhere. There's not that many players that you love to play on this slate. So I think Naji has about as high of a ceiling as anybody. So he'll make it into some of my lineups.
My God, did you see Nick Chubb's top play probability?
No.
27%.
That's pretty high.
I feel like it is. Granted, we've seen stuff like this before. I think we had Lamar Jackson at like 55% once.
Did we really? That's nuts.
And he had a horrible game. It was just one of those games, but still 50% means there's still a 50% chance they're not the highest score.
True. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, if you guys want to take advantage too of the top, Neil, I was actually using you as an example today. I know you use this tool frequently when it comes to showdowns, and you've had a pretty decent amount of success with it.
Sorry, I I do. I've had a lot of success with it. Terry McBride just sent me a note, so I just want to say for anybody playing MLB today, Ronald Acuna was just scratched. I luckily did not play MLB because I was going to be on the show, but if you played MLB, get Ronald Acuna out of your lineups.
What are we doing, PSAs now?
I wanted to alert the people who are maybe playing both sports since Terry sent me this message. I think he might have been just sending it for
Civic
me.
Parked in lot B.
Yeah. But yeah, I use literally the only tools that I use when building my lineups for Showdown are Fantasy Cruncher, which includes the projections from Stokastic, and then the top single game Showdown tool. That's all I use when I'm making my lineups, and it's all that I have found I need to use.
Yeah, and now it's $1 for the entire week. That's why I mentioned this. Promo code primetime. Jordan can throw the chat or the link in the chat. It's in the description, or just go to stokastic.com/promos. Here's why it's sick. You have the Showdown lineup generator. You have the ownership projections for player. You have, I don't know why we don't have the top Showdown plays and single game plays tool up there, because it's arguably the best tool that we have. That's a monster beer. You have the lineup builder, all of that stuff for $1. Now, here's the best part. It's $1 for a week, right? That's a quarter per slate. You did it tonight for $1. That means you get tonight's slate, means you get Sunday Night Football Showdown, and Showdown contests are massive. Means you get Monday Night Football, and you get Thursday. So like I said, a quarter a slate, all of that, $1 in total. Take advantage if you guys like playing Showdowns, and watch Neil's video. Check out the articles that he's written on Showdown content, because it'll be massively helpful as well. All of that included over at Stokastic.com. We had a question, and we can close Pittsburgh with this and work our way over to Chicago, or to Cleveland. And of course, Matt Savoca, or no, is it Savoca and Gajewski coming up next? I think so. Yeah. Live before lock. But someone said, hey, with the wind, I'm trying to find who it was. My apologies. But essentially with this wind, you could see a lot more running. Here it is. Corey Bomber, low scoring game, but do you play kickers with this wind? Neil, how do you approach kickers?
So I have not adjusted my kickers at all. It is something that I would consider doing, though. In 20-mile-per-hour winds, maybe they don't want to risk kicking it because, what are the odds the kicker's even going to make it to begin with? So maybe teams take more chances on, 4th and 3 instead of kicking field goals. It's a really good question, and I have not decided what approach I'm taking yet tonight. I don't think that I'm playing like 30-40% kickers anyway tonight. So it's not a huge factor for me, but I still think that I'm probably going to be playing, try to get to like 20% of the kickers and hope that, they still do take those shots. But it is a tough question.
It is. I think both defenses are very, very, very much in play as well. So,
and Nate PS, am I crazy for fading both quarterbacks? Honestly, I don't think so. I think that especially on DraftKings, where it's PPR, you get a full point per reception. If they can't move the ball every time they throw the ball or run the ball, obviously, if they throw the ball, the receiver's getting more points than the quarterback. If they run the ball, obviously the quarterback's not getting any points, assuming it's not the quarterback running. These are not rushing quarterbacks. So I don't think it's crazy. It's not something that I'm going to be doing in that many lineups tonight. I'm going to be playing the quarterbacks in plenty of lineups, but I will probably have some lineups that fade both quarterbacks. I don't think it's crazy at all.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're going to have to give me an arbitrary number, but what you think off the top of your head. What do you think the chances are that there are no passing touchdowns in this game?
25%.
Okay. Decent shot. That's a decent shot.
Yeah. I mean, especially with this wind, that increases the odds.
For sure. You like Pittsburgh defense? You like Cleveland defense?
I do. Yep.
Yeah.
I prefer Cleveland defense just because they're the better defense and they're cheaper. But I'm going to be playing both defenses.
Okay. Let's talk Browns. We're going to build a lineup too before we get out of here and turn it over to live before like we're till 7:20, right, Jordan? 7:20. All right. So we'll talk about the Browns here, starting with Nick Chubb. I know he has a negative leverage score. So Neil, we'll ask you by will. I mean, me and everybody watching to kind of talk us through this one, because yes, he has a 26% top play probability, very high, almost double the next closest player, which is Deontay Johnson at 14.7. He's 15.8% ownership in the captain spot right now, minus 4.3 leverage score. I have over 77.5 rushing yards on Chubb. I think that's come up considerably, but I'd still probably take the over. how do you view this as playing Chubb in a lot of lineups or being underweight on Chubb? What are the advantages to either or to one?
So I think I'm going to be underweight to Chubb just because he's getting a little bit more ownership than I would like, particularly in the captain spot. He's owned at 15.8%, and he's optimal 9.3% of the time. Man, the win does kind of change the equation because I am like, man, Nick Chubb could rush it 30 times this game and it would not be all that shocking. So that kind of slows me down from really fading Chubb here. He is the most expensive player on the slate by $2,200. I think I'll be underweight to the field on Chubb, and that's largely just because I think this is a slate where you can leave a lot of money on the table and get really unique if you just don't play Chubb. Essentially, if you just go away from Chubb a little bit more than the field, it's really easy to leave a lot of salary on the table and get very unique on this slate. So I'm not going to play Chubb. I'm not going to match the field. The field has Chubb currently in, let's see, 47 plus 60, 63% of lineups are going to have Chubb either in the captain or the utility spot tonight. I'm going to have certainly below that, probably by a good number. But that honestly, that's largely just because of the way I build my lineups, because I like to leave salary on the table. And it's easy to do that with a guy who is, 2,200. Just leave him out of your lineups is an easier way to leave some salary on the table. He's also not a great PPR player, so I like him better on FanDuel than DraftKings. I think I'd rather just go to Kareem Hunt, who is $4,400 cheaper than Nick Chubb, who also has, about the same ability to spike. Nick Chubb is a little bit more consistent, but Kareem Hunt has spike games too, and he's so much cheaper. So I think that I'm going to be under the field on Chubb. But I think if you want to lock him in, that's reasonable as well.
Right. And that's how you play, right? That's how you've won a lot. Listen, we know there's going to be some nights where you do something like that and it goes terribly, right? But when it doesn't go terribly, you're positioning yourself to have a massive advantage over the field. You should explain that a little bit to people just who are questioning how showdowns work in that respect. Because a lot of people are going to look at you and go, dude, how are you underweight on Nick Chubb? But there is a method to the madness.
Yeah, so I actually wrote an article, and it's an evergreen article on our site about Showdown tips and tricks. And I kind of explained that for me, Showdown it's a little bit of a math game, a game theory game, where what you're trying to do is, on any given slate, any lineup has a very little chance of winning the tournament. Like even the highest projected lineups have very little chance of winning. So for me, I would rather have lineups that if they win, they're going to win me a lot of money. And the way to do that is by getting unique. So you're not going to be, duplicated by 250 people. You don't want to have a lineup that's going to be duplicated 250 times, because even if you win in a milli maker, you're going to win like $6,000, or I don't know what the actual numbers are tonight, the prize pool, but you're going to win like $6,000 if everything goes right for you. If you build one of those chalky lineups, if you just get a little bit unique, and one of my favorite ways to do so is to leave some salary on the table. If you get a little bit unique, you can win, like $90,000, or you can win. Somebody won a milli just last week. I believe somebody won a milli on DraftKings. So the easiest way to make lineups that have better expected value is to make lineups that are unique. And that includes sometimes just leaving a little bit of salary on the table. Sometimes it means playing, players who are not getting any ownership, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. And one of the easiest ways is to leave salary on the table. And that's a lot easier when you're not playing $12,000 Nick Chubb.
For sure. What about some lineups where you're going Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb? Because these guys are averaging, and this is interesting, 35 total touches per game through the first two games, right? 20 plus for Chubb. I think it's 21 he's averaging per game. And then Kareem Hunt's had 15 touches in back-to-back game, or 15 looks in back-to-back games. With the underwhelming quarterback, with some wins in Cleveland, you might see another 35 to 40 total touches between these two guys tonight.
Yeah. And, I said that actually, that was some advice that I gave in my article. One piece of advice was a correlation that I like that the field tries to avoid is two running backs from the same team in the same lineup. The field doesn't like to do it. It goes under owned. Really, it's the correlation isn't all that negative between running backs on the same team. So yeah, I like that idea of playing Nick Chubb with Kareem Hunt in the same lineup. If you're playing Nick Chubb, that's one way to get a little bit different.
Yeah, I think even like captain Kareem Hunt with Chubb in the flex or something, and hope that that Kareem Hunt has some big numbers in the passing game. Totally possible, but Yeah, I don't know. How popular do you think that's going to be of a build? Like no quarterbacks and just going Hunt, Chubb, and Harris.
I think it'll be more popular tonight than it would be on a lot of slates, just because a lot of people are seeing the same thing. You know, there's wind, there's not going to be able to throw the ball. Let's just jam in the running backs. I don't think it's going to be that uncommon, but I still think it's going to be relatively uncommon.
I think I agree with you there for sure. All right, let's keep it moving then. Pass catchers, Jacoby Brissett, starting with him at quarterback. Then we'll get to the pass catchers. How do you approach him tonight?
Yeah, so I think that I have some interest. I'm going to be playing Jacoby Brissett. As I said before, same logic applies with Mr. Trubisky. If you have Jacoby Brissett in the captain spot, you probably want at least two receivers from the Browns in the flex spots because he's not a guy who rushes a lot. Although he has rushed for 53 yards already this year, so a little bit better than he has been in the past, but still not a guy who I think is going to be rushing a ton. He's currently coming in at 7.8% owned in the captain spot, 8.5% optimal. So yeah, I have interest in Jacoby Brissett. You know, maybe the wind dies down in the second half. We can hope that it's not going to be as bad as we're expecting, and these quarterbacks are able to throw a little bit. So yeah, honestly, I think that the field has it about right. Coming in the captain spot 8% of the time, in the utility spot 38% of the time. That's probably close to where I'll be on Jacoby Brissett as well.
Now we get into the fun part with, because Kareem, did you want to talk any more about Kareem Hunt? You didn't have much time to talk about him. Is there anything else you wanted to add on him? I know we spent a lot of time on Chubb.
I mean, I would just say, the salary. So he's $2,200 cheaper than Naji Harris. Honestly, I think they have similar floor and ceiling in the spot. So he's $2,200 cheaper. He benefits the same way, potentially, that Naji Harris does from the wind, where maybe he gets some more short dump off passes, gets some more PPR points that way, or just rushes the ball more because of the wind. So I think that he could benefit from this win game. And he is just so cheap for a guy who has the upside that Kareem Hunt at 7,600. I think that it makes a lot of sense to go to some Kareem Hunt today. He's also getting about 42% ownership overall, and he's optimal about 50% of the time overall, so 49% of the time overall. So looking a little bit under owned despite the price tag. So I'd like to go to some Kareem Hunt today. Yeah,
me too. I do like both of these guys. You're poor. I just want to be able to know, when you're saying that you're going to be underweight on Chubb, it's not that you don't think he's going to have a good game, especially given just all the numbers. It's more so getting leverage.
As you said, Chubb has a 27% chance of being the top play today. And I believe that. I mean, the Sims don't lie. He's got a 27%. That also means that he has a 73% chance of not being the top overall play. And he's the most expensive play by $2,200. So do I think Nick Chubb is likely to have a big game? Sure. He's, on any given slate, he's one of the likelier players to have a big game, but the ownership shows that. And I think one of the easiest ways to get a little bit different is to fade him. And I'm not full fading either, to be clear. I'm just going under the field.
I get it. Yeah, for sure. I'd just like to clarify those things. Some people might be new to Showdown.
Yeah.
All right. So time for the pass catchers. Before we do though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. They just upped they just upped the deposit bonus, the first match deposit bonus from 25 to $50. So if you are already there, but you're probably enjoying it. Our boy Jordan Frank, who, one of the co-founder, one of the original people here at Stokastic, was in first place up until that last Herbert touchdown the other day. But they've done a nice overhaul there. It looks really good. Awesome contests where you're doing player prop contests, but instead of it being, against the house, hence the name No House Advantage, you do it like you would on DraftKings FanDuel, Yahoo, anywhere else. You're playing against your peers. You're playing against other people, submitting lineups. You're building lineups essentially just with props. We have the No House Advantage projections. We have the optimal lineup tool for No House Advantage, all of it free over at Stokastic. We have Odd Shopper. We have the player prop tool. So you don't need to pay for any tools to have an edge over at No House Advantage. And like I said, you got the $50 first match deposit bonus. The plays you like the most, you put at the top. They get the most points. The ones you like the least, they go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. It's very simple. You have football, baseball, basketball, golf, UFC, NASCAR, all of that stuff. And NFL lineup generator projections for NHA. It's Stokastic, like I said. So definitely check that out. They also have the pick'em contest for other people. You're playing against other people. Shot at winning $150,000 in cash. Or you can test your skills against the house, 20 extra entry if you hit all your picks. So a lot of different variations there. Free money when you sign up and deposit. Check it out. NoHouseAdvantage.com. Is it we got links now, or we got a link, or we got a promo code? Jordan, is it the link now? We're just getting rid of these okay. So use the link in the chat or the description to get the first match deposit bonus. NoHouseAdvantage.com. Download it in the App Store, Google Play Store, wherever it is you feel inclined. All right. Neil, pass catchers. Amari Cooper, week 2 was the guy. Donovan Peoples-Jones, week 1 was the guy. David Bell's, for the most part, been an afterthought. Harrison Bryant, though. You want to look at route participation? You want to look at targets per route run? He's actually kind of getting involved more than David Njoku when it comes to actual target share.
And he's not getting a ton of ownership coming in. I believe we had him at 11% last time I looked. Yeah, he's run 32 routes through 2 games. So I don't know how much to buy into it, but 20 fewer than Njoku there. But he leads tight ends in targets with 8 to Njoku's 6. He's 4,600. I think that, the price tag is a little bit high relative to his projection, right? So he's going to be under owned because he just doesn't project that well for a player at a $4,600 price tag. But I think the same logic applies with Harrison Bryant to Zach Gentry. Even though he's a little bit more expensive than Zach Gentry, he's also a little bit more involved. And I think even at 4,600, 1 touchdown could be enough for him to be optimal. I'm not totally confident that that's a little bit expensive for him if he's only going to put up, 7.5 fantasy points or whatever. He might need more than that, but I'm not totally sure that he does in this game. And he could have a couple receptions as well. So the price is low enough that he doesn't need to do a ton. He's a good red zone target. He's a big tight end who could factor in a little bit more in a windy game. Maybe they want to throw to their big guys a little bit more. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Harrison Bryant tonight.
Me too. Social Laura, I don't know if I pronounced that right, said, Laffy, the YouTube overlords are pissed at the like rate. Algorithm is suffering. Yeah, hit that thumbs up. You're right. You're absolutely right. Sotex said, atone for your sins. Hit that like button. Yeah. Atone for your sins. One? What's that?
I said, where do you get that one? Atone for your sins.
I haven't heard that before. You know what I do like? I might steal
original.
That.
I like it.
Yeah, I might steal that. Atone for your sins. We must genuflect before the YouTube overlords. We're at 300 though, not bad. If we could do 400 by 7:20, that's 6 minutes. I don't even think we got 2,000 people watching, Neil. That's not out of the question.
Let's do it.
All right, we can get
Sean V is livid at me in chat, which means I'm doing something right tonight, I think.
I was reading that too. It's funny. All right. In fact, it said, wow, Laffy could never manage to be that creative. You're right. Yeah, I don't know where you heard that from. That's okay. I want everyone to have that. We share the love around here, Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Okay, so the thing about Harrison Bryant, though, just to jump back here for 1 second, is I think it's kind of twofold. In one sense, like you said, he's not running a ton of routes, but on the other hand, he's been targeted on 25% of the routes that he's run. So is he going to be, because doesn't he have 8 targets on like 32 routes?
Does. Yep. 25%. Exactly.
Yeah. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, he's not on the field as much as Njoku, and Njoku's definitely ran more routes than him, 52 to 32. So route participation's a lot higher, but he's running a lot of empty routes. Maybe Harrison Bryant is just one of those guys that when he's running routes, they intend on trying to get him the football, or he's involved. So I think that's entirely possible, but I love what you said. He does seem a little bit overpriced, but on a slate like this, where your quarterbacks are so cheap, where it's easy to build lineups, I don't mind overpaying a little bit for someone like that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, we just got the question in chat. Who do we like better tonight between Harrison Bryant and David Njoku? It's still Njoku for me. I still prefer the guy who's getting more routes. I think Njoku's the pretty clear tight end one in Cleveland, and he's not that much more expensive. He's 5,200, and he's also not getting a ton of ownership. He's coming in at 1.7% owned in the captain spot, 14.3% in the utility spot. So I still do prefer David Njoku, but it's kind of close. I think Harrison Bryant, is getting a little bit lower ownership. I do think that Njoku has better odds of putting up a big game, and especially on FanDuel, where Harrison Bryant is actually more expensive than David Njoku. I think David Njoku is really interesting for me.
They're definitely running a decent amount of 12 personnel too.
Yeah, you can play both.
What's that? You
can play both. That's another. I mean, I recommended really two running backs. You could play 2 tight ends as well.
You really could. You're right. I mean, Njoku's playing 94% of snaps last week, 94%. But Harrison Bryant still almost played 50% of snaps. Of course, a lot of those are going to be blocking, but still, yeah, both of them are entirely viable. No disagreements with that at all. What else do we got here? We got tight ends. We hit on the wide receivers. We hit on both running backs. We got 3 minutes to go. Oh, we need to build a lineup.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we talked about the wide receivers a little bit. It looks like, and then also we didn't mention Demetric Felton is out tonight. So he is inactive. If you had him in your lineup, get him out. But yeah, we talked about the tight ends. We talked a little bit. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones tonight. I think that, 5,400 based on his game one, he might be utilized a little bit. I mean, he didn't do anything last week, but he's not getting a ton of ownership. 3.6% owned in the captain spot, 20.5% owned in the utility spot. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm going to be over the field there as well. And Amari Cooper, I think, is the wide receiver one, and he's just not getting a ton of ownership either. He's a little bit expensive relative to his production so far, but I'm still going to be playing some Amari Cooper tonight as well.
Indy Mueller said, here's the craziest thought. Every last one of these thumbs up could always disappear just as quickly as they showed up. Funny you'd say that, because I don't know if you were here at the time, Neil, but there were, Jordan knows, we got brigaded by or attacked by a thumbs down bot. Do you remember that? When the thumbs down button was still around, and we had like 200 thumbs down in the first 30 minutes of the video. But then after it was done being live, they all just disappeared. So not sure. It was impressive, but now it doesn't matter. You can hit that. We can't see it. I think they should have left it up there. Yeah.
Matt M makes a good point that we need to ask for likes an odd number of times. Because if people click it every time we ask and it's an even number, we're just going to lose those likes.
What do you mean?
If you ask for a thumbs up once, you get a thumbs up. You ask for it twice, they click it again, you lose that thumbs up. So it's got to be an odd number of times.
Yes. Yeah. That used to be my gimmick. I would always say, if you hate the show, hit the thumbs down button twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're over 400 though, Neil.
We're over 400. Oh, likes. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah. Thank you guys. You want to,
we're going to build a lineup?
Build a lineup? Yeah.
Yeah.
We got about a minute here. Shouldn't take us long at all.
All right.
I'll let you go first at the captain spot. It's a Millie. So let's just pretend we're building the Millie lineup and let's get weird.
I want Deontay.
Okay. That was quick.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going Kareem. I think that's just too good of a price. We don't need to go crazy. I'll go Kareem Hunt there.
I like the Kareem Hunt call as well. I'm going to go all the way down to David Bell.
Okay. Time to get weird. I'll go. All right. So we have Cleveland running back, Cleveland wide receiver. Let me ask you this, so we're on the same page. How do you want to approach quarterbacks?
So I think you could get different by not playing Mitch Trubisky. Because we have Deontay Johnson in the captain spot, people will automatically right away go to Mitch Trubisky. But I don't think we need to do that. If we leave a little bit of salary on the table and we're playing David Bell, I don't think that it's necessary to, tweak all of those things to get different. So I think we could go to Mitch Trubisky here if you wanted to. We could probably do both and then play another cheapie.
Okay. And yeah, Chris Albers, 20-mile-per-hour winds is relevant. Yes. Thank you for the super chat. You want to throw both in and see what happens?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. 9,800 remaining. So you have Deontay Johnson, Kareem Hunt, David Bell, Mitch Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett.
Yep. So I'm not touching anybody near the top of the board.
Yeah, you can't go Harris here because that maxes you out. That zeroes you out. And that's not winning a milli.
I'm tempted to go to Claypool. The only issue with that is, well, let me see what happens. If we go to Claypool, he's only our second Pittsburgh receiver. I don't want to have three Pittsburgh receivers in a lineup that has Deontay Johnson in the captain spot, but I think I'm okay with going with one more. This leaves $3,600 on the table. What do you think of that?
I'm fine with it. Yeah, you could go Claypool. You could go Freiermuth. You could get really weird and go with Pickens all the way down there and leave a ton of money.
Will you go to Harrison Bryant? Yeah, there's a lot of options here, but I think Claypool is probably my favorite.
I like it. That's not going to be a popular lineup.
Not at all. Leaves 3,600 on the table.
Yeah. And you have no Naji and no Nick Chubb.
Yep.
In wing game. Awesome. Neil, great stuff as always, man. Hit Neil up at player Q DFS, me at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Yeah, we're about to hit 500 likes. See, we got the best people watching these shows.
Yeah, we
around. Do. And shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this show. writing just sick beats, dude.
Best in the business.
Yeah, best in the business. You guys are awesome. Do not go anywhere. And like 500 likes before the next show starts. Just show him how we do things around here. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Neil?
Agree. I 100% agree.
All right. Chug that beer before we go.
Yeah.
Just pound that.
I cannot. I'm not a good chugger. I'll take a swig though.
All right, we'll see you guys. Good luck tonight. Stick around. Savoca, Gajewski coming up next, live before lock. Peace. 500 like.
What's up? This is Andy Francis, and I'm going to be giving you 5 picks that I'm going to use versus the house tonight for Thursday Night Football. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. No house advantage. I've tried explaining this a few times. Very simple. You pick player props, and then you make money. It's fantasy plus player props in an easy-to-use platform. There's 2 types of competitions. The first kind we made a video for yesterday, which you should check out. It's the pick'em contest, where you pick props, overs, unders on receiving yards or receptions or rushing yards, whatever they list for you, and the more that you get correct, you go up the standings and your money multiplies. What we're going to make a video for today is the versus the house feature, where if you can get 5 of your 5 picks right, you make 20 times your money. So that's what we're going to try to hit today. Now, today, I'm going to use the assistance of some of the projections on Stokastic, which they offer totally for free, because these are the type of games that confuse me, because obviously every single person's thinking, oh, wow, you got the Steelers and the Browns are gonna be a low scoring affair. But well, the Browns just played the Jets, and I think it was like 31-30, and Flacco threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's not, everything doesn't go the way life plans. When you asked out that girl to prom and she said no, in your head you thought it was gonna go well. It didn't go well. And sometimes the thoughts of these games don't go well, which is why you can... What the hell?
We're talking. Apparently, we're just live right now because Jordan is the greatest beat dropper in the business. So what does he do? He takes away the music immediately. He just makes us go live right away. What's up, guys? My name is Matt Savoca. It's the Mats. It's the law firm. That means Matt Gajewski is here. Matt Gajewski punched a ticket to the college football championships in DFS land. Congratulations, my friend. And we are here talking the greatest football game of all time, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. I'm happy to be here. I know you're happy to be here. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I actually like when we get these kind of greasy games on Showdown. If this was on a main slate, it's one of those situations where the analysis is probably play a contrarian Nick Chubb, play a contrarian Naji Harris or Deontay Johnson if you want. Otherwise, we're ignoring the rest of the game. But it's on Thursday night. We need to talk about everybody because it's Showdown. So I like this. I like talking, getting in the weeds. We got to consider Mitch Trubisky captain. It's going to be a fun one.
It's time to not ignore people. I love it. Okay, that sounds good to me. And it is a really interesting slate, right? Because the quarterback expectations are so ridiculously low. You know, we had Neil Orfield and Loughran talking all last hour about getting unique, about changing the way you think in these lineups. But like, really, like, no one is going to succeed but these Cleveland running backs. Is that the easiest way to talk about this off the top? Like, how does anything else happen, especially if the wind approaches 20, 25 mile per hour in their gusts?
Yeah, probably. I think you should definitely be focusing on the running backs, but like the guy said previously, it is going to be about how you build around them to actually have, you know, the ability to win tournaments. It's not always about like, all right, I want the highest projected lineup, because then you chop like first place with a ton of people and you're not actually paid off for being correct. You want to be right in the situations that actually pay you off. So that's tricky today. Mm-hmm. In these situations, I've been very wrong in the past, but sometimes I like to lean into the weather. Maybe it's not as bad as we think. You know, I'm not on the ground there. Certainly doesn't look great, but one of these teams is probably going to have to throw regardless.
Right. If any of these teams ends up down more than 7 points, regardless of the game script they want to be in, they're going to have to shift to a pass-heavy game script. And unfortunately, both of these quarterbacks leave a lot to desire in terms of ability to produce. And the thing that is really annoying is that you would say that if the Steelers had a quarterback, their offensive line has been, you know, average to below average to start the season, but not abysmal to the point where that's the reason the team is crumbling. If this team had a quarterback with Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, and Freiermuth still being very involved despite them drafting Pickens, I think we'd be excited about this offense up there with one of the top teams in the league. The bottom line is they're being held down by the quarterback. I guess the open-ended question is this Trubisky's last game as a starter? Because I think, percentage chance is probably 10 to 20%.
It very well could be. Laffy asked me the same question this morning. I put it at 10 to 15. So we're like right in the same ballpark. Like at some point, they're going to have to just change quarterbacks to save their jobs if they keep performing at the level they are right now. It's unacceptable. And I'm not even a Steelers fan. So for like DFS, I wouldn't be considering him today. I think it's a long shot he actually gets on the field. But I mean, I don't think we're far from the Kenny Pickett experience. And generally speaking, quarterbacks that are drafted in the first round play sometime within the first 4 or 5 weeks. So we're kind of right up on it.
Yeah. I believe that Tomlin would be that kind of stubborn, old school coach that might hold Pickett on the sideline all year. We see Gordon in chat stating that exact thing, where he might just stay stubborn about it. I don't think that's the way to hold on to your job long term in the NFL. I know Tomlin's one of the longest tenured coaches in the entire league. But ultimately, I think this team has much more upside with Pickett at the helm. I think in terms of talking about trying to play unique lineups in Showdown, it's a long shot, but we still have seen backup quarterbacks take this down. If you're playing something like a Millie Maker, I do think Kenny Pickett belongs in your player pool today. We just quantified the percentage chances he gets pulled. What if we're just a little late, meaning he gets pulled at halftime?
I think in a game like today, you still need to be considering how much would he have to play to actually outscore the guys in his range, because there's like Pickens there. He's not far away from Freiermuth. So is like a half of Pickett worth more than one of those guys? I don't have the answer to that, but I think it's at least worth asking. I'm not going to be doing it, but I'm also not playing 150 lineups tonight. I think that's a question to be careful with.
Yeah, in terms of median projection, it's going to look pretty darn bad, but the ceiling, I guess, is, it's theoretically high, but we're talking about 0.5% of in the range of outcomes. Okay, let's talk about the game script, the game flow. Obviously, the weather is already a concern. The quarterbacks, we've already gotten into that. What do you think the most likely way the winning team wins this game? It's got to be running the ball or unexpected passing accuracy from Brissett or Trubisky.
Yeah, I do think that. I think it is going to be running the ball in a grinded out game. And there's a couple of reasons why. The weather, 1, bad quarterback play, 2, and 3, kind of just an added consequence of running the ball like this. Like it's windy, but generally we need elevated passing attempts from these teams to generate potential turnovers, generate sacks. So even though it's low scoring, this might not be great for the defenses in terms of the overall ceiling projection. I'm still going to be rostering them, but I think it just changes the mechanics of the game if the weather is truly a big factor here. And again, generally speaking, the weather can be overblown. It's not every single time we talk about weather, it ends up being a San Francisco-Chicago situation. I don't think we're going to have that today. So to me, I'm going to try to lean into the weather being a little bit overblown if it's causing people to shy away from some players like the signal callers.
That makes sense to me. We got a super chat here. What's up, guys? Thanks for hanging out. I saw Laffy bragging about how many likes he got. I would be happy to prove him wrong about how many likes we could get here. Maybe we can push it all the way to 1,000 likes, but we got to talk about this super chat from Doug. Doug says, love your Showdown analysis, Matt G, as do I. Thoughts on the Cleveland defense or Naji/Hunt for DK cash captain?
Probably not the defense for cash. Defense is extremely volatile. And, like if we had Pittsburgh return a kick for a touchdown, those points that are taken away still count against your defense. So sometimes the defense isn't even on the field and they can have something docked from them, even though they had a really good game. Just too volatile for me. As for the other players, I think they're fine in captain in cash if you want to go there. I ran optimals before the show today. It gave me quite a bit of Mitch Trubisky. If you can stomach that, he would be my number 1. But if you personally built a lineup that you love with Naji at captain or something like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah. You know, I'm looking at the value score for all of these players over on our DraftKings projections, and it's so flat today. It's like ridiculously flat. I get it on a per play basis. The quarterbacks are going to look good, and I get that Trubisky is just ugly there, but I get why he's popping. I think Hunt as a cash captain makes a whole lot of sense because it's a salary saver compared to the top options, and then Naji is kind of a, I don't know. From a salary standpoint, we'll get into the running backs in a minute. From a salary standpoint, I don't love that. Well, I'm just looking at the comment below. The Driven says Trubisky not even that bad. Don't. Oh, I thought he meant don't rush a rookie like Trubisky was a rookie. I realize he's saying don't rush the rookie in Pickett. Okay, that actually makes sense. The Driven. I apologize. Okay, we already started talking about it a little bit. What do you say we dig into the weeds of the quarterback position? See who your favorite value is there. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's do it. Also, thank you to No House Advantage. Laffy pointed out how awesome their platform is this year. I agree. Check out them. We're going to be talking about them a little later. But let's talk about Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky is 31st in Player Profiler's accuracy rating. Mitch Trubisky doesn't run anymore, apparently. And I was seeing from beat writers that Mitch Trubisky isn't allowed to audible at the line of scrimmage. He's being treated with, I guess, kid gloves, whatever you want to call it. And he looks like an inept player right now. How do we trust a player like this, even though he's popping in the optimals? Because on a per touch basis, a quarterback who has a lower salary will look good. How do we make this work today?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say is our projections know he's bad. So for him to still be coming out as the top value play, I'm looking at the tools right now. He's arguably the most under-owned play just for him touching the ball every single snap. That says a lot to me because like everything you're mentioning, our projections know that. And you pair this with pricing, like he is the 6th most expensive player on this slate. So I think all of it makes sense. Yes, he's not projecting that well, but in relation to everybody else, when you factor in pricing, it looks a little bit better. So kudos to DraftKings. I think they did a solid job with the pricing here. As far as him as a player, some of the limitations are on him. Certainly, he's never been really a capable starting signal caller in the league, but schematically, I think he's being neutered a little bit too by this offense. You mentioned the inability to audible. That kind of makes sense, but you're still talking about like he's been in the league over 5 years now. He's not some rookie. Like he knows the ropes calling plays in an NFL offense. Like he should have at least a little freedom here. He's not running. I don't think that's necessarily all on him. We know he has mobility. No, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he is a guy you can occasionally design a run for. Use the numbers to your advantage. Get an extra blocker in there. Actually play 11 on 11 rather than 10 on 11, which is what happens every time Pittsburgh runs the ball. And lastly, the passing game looks just like what we saw with Ben Roethlisberger. Now, we thought at the time that was a result of Ben Roethlisberger's arm strength dwindling in the twilight of his career. Trubisky is not even 30 years old yet. His arm is not a question in terms of strength. Certainly, he's erratic, but he's somebody that should be able to push the ball down the field to Chase Claypool, who's an athletic boundary stretcher. They're kind of using him in an underneath role. Pickens is a guy who had a really high ADOT in college and has, to this point in the pros, but he has just 6 targets. I don't think it's all on Trubisky here, but overall, we know he has the capability to run a little bit. He's been productive in spots, and I don't put it all on him. I think it's partially the offense.
It may be on the play callers too. I mean, he ran a 4.67 40, which for skill players is okay, but for quarterbacks, that's 84th percentile according to playerprofiler.com. So you should have more than 2 rushes per game, QB 24 right now. The one thing is the accuracy is just inexcusably bad to the point where I think this is a career backup quarterback unless he can drastically turn it around, and very soon. Advanced metrics like QBR and true passer rating have him around QB 25 to 30, but in clean pocket completion percentage, outside the top 25, and yards per attempt, outside the top 30, and his air yards per attempt, he's not pushing the ball deep, just like he said. Just 8.1 air yards per attempt is right around league average. This is just a bad offense, just kind of running a very traditional, non-innovative offense where they're relying on talent to just win out. That actually worked at some points in the mid 2010s, and it's not working anymore. I do think that this there's a possibility that we just see Trubisky triple the amount of rushes he gets. He gets 6 or 7 rushes and suddenly he looks good, especially when you compare him to a price per dollar standpoint. But do I feel good about any lineups that really feature him and multiple pass catchers? Not really.
They should do that. His best season in Chicago came when they actually utilized his mobility, because not only is he pretty good at it, but it changes the way defenses play you. They have another thing that they're thinking about. Okay, if Trubisky's running the ball, maybe they bring somebody up in the box to spy on him and it affords you an extra passing lane or something. And Trubisky's not the first bad quarterback to be inserted into an offense that has good pass catchers. Like Joe Flacco, I mean, Joe Flacco might be a bad example because he's throwing the ball 60 times a game, but you see the point. Like sometimes these guys get inserted into offenses and you get your guys easy yards after catch opportunities. You put the ball in your playmakers' hands, and they have 4 of them, 5 of them if you include Freiermuth. I think they have the skill position players to do that, and I don't know what's wrong. If this continues, they're going to ask for Matt Canada's head in Pittsburgh.
They absolutely are. And Anthony asked a question: can you play all of the Steelers' skill position players with no Mitch Trubisky? I think the maximum you would do that strategy with is 3 skill position players on the Steelers, but we actually have seen this. I think the best example is like 2 or 3 seasons ago with the classic Mike Zimmer offense in Minnesota, where Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and maybe rookie Justin Jefferson were able to kind of overcome a very, very standard, non-innovative offensive script and be very valuable from a DFS perspective without Kirk Cousins being valuable. I don't know how likely that is, but I think you definitely can do that. I think you can.
I think you can too. The things I would look for when considering that are non-mobile quarterbacks. If they're not adding anything on the ground, they're just reliant on pass. So then on a site like DraftKings, where you have the potential for 100-yard bonuses and PPR bonuses, if that production is just funneled to one player and it's not too much to begin with, it's pretty easy to see a pass catcher outscoring them. We know running backs can certainly outscore signal callers here too. And then price is another thing. So in those builds, you talked about like 3 threes. The only thing I would say is if you had like a min price guy, then maybe you could do like a 4-2. We don't have that today, so I'm in agreement with you. I probably wouldn't run more than 3 skill position players without Trubisky or Brissett for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's a showdown slate. Anything is possible. But I think it's low probability. Now talk to me about Jacoby Brissett. He's been kind of equally unimpressive, just 21st in the league in pass attempts, only 2 passes of 20 or more air yards all season long right now. At least he's throwing the ball in the red zone a little bit, 4.5 red zone pass attempts per game. It hasn't amounted to any sort of efficiency. I just don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. Actually, the only thing I'm looking at is that at least Cleveland has let Jacoby Brissett run a little bit. He's at 5 carries per game. That's decent. But he's not as good an athlete as Trubisky is, at least on paper. What's the upside here with Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, I think it's similar to Trubisky. I actually think Jacoby Brissett is going to be a little higher owned. Otherwise, I would probably look to him as the player I'm targeting more often. You mentioned the rushing. You love that. Like you said, I think Trubisky has it. They're just not doing it. And then they're a team that is going to use their playmakers creatively. Like they're going to get Hunt open in space, give Jacoby Brissett easy lanes to throw it to him. Amari Cooper is the guy that's a very good separator, and they've used him well in that fashion. The only issue I really have is we know Cleveland's preferred game plan. They want to run the ball, and they're favored in this game. So I do personally believe they're the better team. If they get the opening kickoff and they score right away, you could see Brissett face out of this game. You could say the same thing about Trubisky on the other side. It's just that Pittsburgh is the underdog here. So I think that's just slightly less likely over there.
They don't want to use Jacoby Brissett. They want to use him as little as possible. That doesn't mean they'll always be in a situation where they can do that. But when you're talking about range of outcomes and probabilities in a 1-game slate, playing the Steelers with this inept of an offense that are probably not going to push them offensively, I think the most likely outcome is they'll be able to do it. Guys, we got some super chats lining up. This is awesome. We're going to get to them. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, helps us out a ton. Eric Traub is asking, who is the sub 10% owned player you would feel most comfortable with? Matt, I'll kick it to you.
Ooh, this is tough. Can I use a 10% player?
You can use a 10% player.
All right, we'll use that as a caveat. Harrison Bryant's exactly 10%. He would be the most comfortable. We don't have very many min price guys today. Outside of him, I think David Bell is the next player I would look to. They've rotated this sort of wide receiver 3 position a little bit. You saw Anthony Schwartz get some run in week 1. They went to David Bell in week 2. I don't think he plays more than 30%, 40% of the snaps max. But you're talking about a slate where we don't have very many underrun players or very many just straight value plays. So I'll say David Bell.
Yeah, and Harrison Bryant was my answer. So I think we're kind of on the same page about, comfort is a relative term in that sub-owned part of the player pool, right? Because if they had any more comfort, any more safety or ceiling, they'd probably be rostered by more of the field. So thank you for the super chat, Eric. And Zuit also with a super chat. Trubisky numbers correct on top plays tool right now. I actually think I just saw a message come across our wire. Yes, I did. 5 minutes ago, our tools team was notified of that. I will try to pull up the previous one because I had it in a spreadsheet of mine.
Oh, dang it. I had it too. I just refreshed.
Okay. I will try to find it to get the numbers for us.
He was number 1.
Uh-huh. We're on it. I promise you we are on that for sure, Zui. Thank you for the heads up and thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. We got one more. Safeton, thank you very much. What do you think of fading both quarterbacks?
There's been a popular question today.
Yeah, it has.
I think you absolutely can. The game script. It's weather related. It's low scoring. It's these teams like to run the ball. They both get it down on the ground. And if it stays competitive, if we're not talking about one team down drastically, if the Steelers return the opening kick and then Cleveland's 7 points behind, that's not really a script where they're pushing the pass either. It's still neutral and they're going to continue to run. So unless it gets out of control, both these teams I do think are going to favor the run regardless. That's how you get it done. Uninvolved quarterbacks, defensive game, low scoring.
Yeah, and the DraftKings salary especially is just kind of begging you to find a way. Find a way to fade both quarterbacks and get those running backs all in there. Okay, they pushed those salaries up for those running backs. They knew that it would feel more comfortable. Okay, on DraftKings, the recent numbers before this update, and again, we're going to let you know when they re-update on the site as well. We had it at 59, I believe, is the number I had for Trubisky with a 7 point something leverage score. I'm sorry, I don't have it. Yeah, and apparently we're finding that it's one of our tools has a naming issue that we're getting sorted out right away. But yeah, he had the highest leverage score. So without giving the exact numbers away, it was above Chase Claypool and Cade York, the kicker for the Cleveland Browns. So you can certainly say that from a leverage and optimal lineup score, Mitch Trubisky looks good, even though he doesn't feel good at all.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And that's what I was seeing previously as well.
Okay. I think we will wrap back around once that updates, but let's head to the running back position where these are the superstars of the slate. We already kind of talked about it going into this question with Safeton, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Naji Harris. The guaranteed workload is going to be there. I believe Lofty said it last hour, 35 touches right now, 35 touches per game between Chubb and Hunt. Talk about safety and ceiling from these two players in a positive game script. I'm just trying to find a way to jam him in. I might be over the field, and I know Neil Orfield's won a lot of money, so I'm scared to be against him, but I just can't get away from Chubb in this game.
Yeah, he's the highest raw projected player. Makes sense. He's the most expensive player on this slate. There are holes you can poke in his game. I think in an ugly slate like this, he's very clearly number one, but at the end of the day, he still is a running back that is a non-pass catcher. He's a 2-down grinder, reliant on touchdowns and efficiency. Now, he happens to be one of the most efficient backs in the NFL, so he routinely gets it done despite his lack of pass catching upside. But at his price, he doesn't come without risks. If Pittsburgh scores the opening touchdown, Cleveland goes 3 and out, and Pittsburgh's in control of the game, you could see a game where Chubb doesn't quite hit the same ceiling. And week 1, we literally saw this. The touchdowns just went to Kareem Hunt, and he was the player with the ceiling game. So it's not just the lack of pass catching. It's also the fact that Kareem Hunt's highly involved. And Chubb's not a guarantee to get the touchdowns. Even in week 1, Hunt was the player that got those, and he had the ceiling. Just a little volatile. I think you can be confident in both players because they do run the ball so much, but it is slightly more volatile than Pittsburgh on the other side.
From a volume standpoint, sure, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's like a cliche. Like I have to drink if I say Nick Chubb is the best pure rusher in the NFL, but he's second in total evaded touches, 7th in evaded tackles per touch, despite being near the top of the league in total carries, number 4 in total carries. His breakaway run rate, say that 10 times fast, is number 10 in the league with 4 runs of 10 plus yards. The dude's amazing. And he's in a game script that just makes it hard for me to see them going away from the rush. The volatility is there because of the talent of Kareem Hunt. And I saw in chat earlier, they were talking about D'Ernest Johnson being active for the first time. I guess we'll talk about Kareem Hunt in a minute, but do you think D'Ernest Johnson takes any meaningful snap share just because he's active and Demetric Felton is not?
No, we've seen this a couple times now in his career. He's insurance for either back if one were to go down. Maybe he plays some special teams and gets a snap here or there.
He had that Thursday night game where he, that darling Thursday night game where he just gobbled up. I think he had like 110 plus yards on the ground, and that's not what is happening tonight. So I guess it's Kareem Hunt, the thorn in the side of the people who bet big on Nick Chubb, like I'm kind of inclined to do today. Like you said, in week 1, it looked great for Kareem Hunt, 4 receptions, 11 carries, 70 total yards, 2 touchdowns. His underlying metrics look good too, honestly. In expected points added, the advanced metric I really like, number 8 in the NFL, number 9 in total evaded tackles. This guy's great as well, and the salary is obviously a little better. Are you playing a lot of Kareem Hunt, or are you just kind of right at the field? Because I realize the leverage score honestly looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm over. I love Kareem Hunt tonight. It's not a 1-for-1 timeshare, but it's close, 60-40 at most in favor of Nick Chubb. And I think if you saw Cleveland in more negative game script to start this very young season, you could be arguing it the other way. These guys do play specific roles, and Kareem Hunt hasn't been in a ton of negative game script to this point. I know they lost their last game, but they were winning it almost all the way through. And Kareem Hunt's also involved on early downs too. It is not just the Nick Chubb show. So at his price, which is the main thing we should be talking about here, he's very affordable comparatively. He's going to project really well. And I'm kind of surprised he's still coming in with positive leverage scores. But at the end of the day, it makes sense. At his price, he's still probably not owned enough. And it could be the case people are making lineups and prioritizing Nick Chubb. Now, with Nick Chubb, you need to make salary-based decisions and concessions. For some people, maybe that concession's Kareem Hunt if they're scared of playing both backs in the same lineup or whatever it may be. The bottom line is he looks like he's going to be a bit underowned.
So here's what's really interesting. If you separate out the leverage score and the percentage chance they'll be owned in as a captain or as a flex play, it looks like the Kareem Hunt flex play is much higher leverage than Kareem Hunt captain, which goes back to that previous super chat. I believe it was Eric talking about Kareem Hunt captain being something that might be actually kind of popular, which leads me to believe that it might actually be very nice to start your cash game lineups today for DraftKings. Let's go to the Pittsburgh side because I think that does it for the Browns. They're very good. They probably have a great chance to succeed. Both of them have the opportunity. Chubb has a slightly higher probability, not so much that you need to necessarily pay up. Naji Harris, man, this guy's just a volume guy, but he's not that efficient. He hasn't been his entire time in the NFL.
He really hasn't. And I think that stems back to college, but this isn't a debate about whether he was the correct pick at the time. What we can say is he's still getting volume. So at the end of the day, he has paths to like backdooring his way into really productive fantasy games because the volume's there. He's an excellent pass catcher. The one thing I'll say is Jaylen Warren presents a little more of a threat than some other backs did previously in this offense. Now, Jaylen Warren's not even really like your true change of pace, but occasionally he's going to be out there and he's going to take away from that like ridiculous snapshot Naji had last year. Mm-hmm. With all that said, I still think he has the most consistent workload on the slate among the running backs.
I think this is just kind of this is the rational part of the offensive coaching scheme in Pittsburgh. I think number 11 in snap share, number 6 in opportunity share for your top running back is just about where you want to be. And I will say this, Naji himself, in terms of being able to evade tackles on his own, has put up the best numbers of his career early on this season. Obviously, volume helps, but he's number 4 overall in evaded tackles. In evaded tackles per touch, he's number 5 right now. I know we've talked about this on a previous show, but if you look at different sites and you look at different elusiveness ratings, they can vary because it's human charters, but the human charters at the site I'm looking at make it seem pretty good. And he's going to have to overcome a pretty poor offensive line and probably a negative game script. He actually has a positive leverage score in the flex position once again. That's probably where I'll play him just because it's safer and lower salary. I can get under 10K if we're talking DraftKings.
Yeah, that's where I have him for the most part too. Not opposed to him in the captain by any means, but I would rather play Kareem Hunt right now. And shockingly, I would rather play Mitch Trubisky just because of the positive leverage scores they do offer. Yeah, I know you got to take a real deep breath after you say that one out loud. And unfortunately, it's on YouTube, so this could come back to bite me. But ultimately, he's going to be a play in the flex for me. The last thing I'll say is he does project to see negative game script, but he's so involved in the pass game, at least historically. Even last year, I know they made the playoffs, but this team wasn't very good. He overcame a lot of negative game script to actually finish where he did. So I think he's pretty safe.
Safety is definitely there. Are you playing Jaylen Warren? You mentioned him. He actually has a positive leverage score, no?
I'm not playing Jaylen Warren.
Oh, no, it's negative, yeah. I think you could. I mean, obviously, large field GPP, he is a player on the football field in a one-game slate. So you can play Jaylen Warren. And, he is kind of this like bowling ball of a running back. The metrics aren't amazing, but the snap share has been there. And I wish the salary were a little bit lower, but I do have a couple shots on Jaylen Warren, again, mostly in the flex spot. Any other running back things you want to hit before we move on here?
I don't think so. I think we hit it all. Warren, for me, he's just close enough to the kickers where I'm trying to make a priority to play them.
All right. Well, let's talk about our sponsor today, No House Advantage. I mentioned them at the top. We mentioned them last hour as well. They had a brand new, like a visual upgrade, a platform upgrade. First of all, it looks awesome over there. And we're talking about huge overlay and awesome contests. No House Advantage is bringing you the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. You play pick'em contests versus other people for a shot at winning $150K in cash. You download the app, which also looks really nice. They've got all the sports you want: NFL, MLB, NBA when it comes back, MMA and NASCAR. And we got a link in the video description below. Definitely check it out today. Let me refresh here, see what the overlay is looking like on their contest today. Okay, so it's about 50% full on their 20K Thursday Night Football with 10K to first. And their $5 entry with 1K to first is also at 51% full. So you want a little free money, you want a little free, that's what'll help you there. That overlay, it's maybe, we're getting just over half full for both tournaments. I don't think that's going to fill. Take advantage of that. Use the link in the video description below, and let's win some cash. Wide receivers, man. I heard them talking about Deontay Johnson and saying that he was their guy for tournaments today. Deontay Johnson is just an excellent wide receiver. He's got a positive leverage score, at least at the flex position I'm seeing right now. And clearly the volume is going to be there just like it was last year. You like Deontay in your lineups today?
Yeah, I don't think much has changed going from Ben to Mitch Trubisky. He's been getting it done with terrible quarterback play his whole career. And he came out of Toledo, so it extends back to his college days. So Johnson, he's not running like downfield stuff. They manufacture him touches. I think he's about as safe as you can get for a receiver play on this slate. He's my favorite one to get to.
Yeah, and sorry, just to derail us for 1 second here. Larry C., thank you so much for telling us. Yeah, the top plays have been updated. So we got Mitch Trubisky there for our premium subscribers and the people who take advantage of Primetime. I don't want to do 2 ads in a row, but Primetime, use that code that they were talking about, also get access to that top plays tool, which has been updated with Trubisky. We got you covered here going into lock. And yeah, Deontay Johnson is just making ridiculous catches on the sideline, getting the dump offs from these low A-dot passers. He's number 8 in the NFL in target share. He's actually gotten 3 deep targets already. The catchable target rate, let's talk about that. 47th in the NFL. If the opportunity value is there, that's all we can hope for as a wide receiver. He's getting open, he's getting targets, but the accuracy is not there. So maybe that is the part that turns around in the wind on Thursday. It's just hard for me. Again, Neil's a better showdown player than I, but it's really hard for me to see him actually hitting his ceiling tonight.
I do agree with you, man. It's like these passing attacks are so bad. I think you're just playing for like weird game scripts, like really low scoring environments where maybe just like having a lot of targets and catches, like the extra PPR bonuses get you there. I think you should, if you're taking that approach, you should be thinking about it like with your whole lineups in mind, though.
Okay, that's that I understand. How likely is anyone other than Deontay Johnson to lead this team in targets? If you want to put like a percentage on it.
I'm glad you said targets. I think it's low. If you said touches, I think you could make a slightly stronger argument for Claypool. I don't know when this guy became like light Deebo Samuel. He's certainly bigger than Deebo Samuel, but when did Chase Claypool get so involved in the run game?
I said 13% of all rushing touches for he has more percent of team rushes right now than Trubisky.
Yeah, dude, I flat out do not understand what they are doing with Chase Claypool in the run game, but I think it helps his floor. The guy gets a lot of just touches. I don't think these are very efficient carries. A lot of them are coming on like jet sweeps, but Chase Claypool has a decent floor. We have to say that because of these weird rushing attempts. Now, do they continue? I don't know, but it's been weird to start. I'll say that.
Chase Claypool, they said he rushed last year, Gordon. Chase Claypool had 3.8% of team rush attempts last year. It's up 10% year over year. I realize small sample, season is young, but that's a huge floor boost. And we're not talking about Deebo Samuel level efficiency, but touches are important, man, especially when when both teams want to rush the ball like we think both teams do tonight. The play volume is not going to be there. So floor from a volume perspective is very important. I do want to hit this super chat. Jorge, thanks so much for hanging out. You're always in here, man. And thank you for the super chat. If passing game is awful, would you stick with running backs at captain and make your unique plays at the flex positions? I think that's one way to play it, honestly. Matt, I'll kick it to you.
You already heard how much Mitch Trubisky I'm playing in the captain spot. So that's another way to do it. Like I do think running backs are going to be more popular tonight because of the weather and the bad offenses. That very well could be the right construction, and you get unique with your flexes. You can also get unique with the captain, which makes Showdown so fun. It sounds like we're in slightly different ends of this, but you never know. It could be either one.
I just see it succeeding for these running backs so much more, but then again, so does the salary. So I respect your chutzpah, as they say, your gall to go get it with Trubisky. I just do not see it tonight. George Pickens looked like a superstar in training camp. He's getting the air yards now, but nothing's turning into actual production. Again, the catchable target rate, this is an ongoing theme for these Steelers receivers. The 66% is wide receiver 66, believe it or not. Just nothing to write home about yet, even though I like the talent coming out of school.
Yeah, I mean, just 6 targets. The issue for me is going to be volume. And it appears he's clearly the number, maybe even 5 for targets. If you want to put Naji Harris ahead of him, I probably don't like that, but it's close. Like, we have to at least ask the question. He's certainly behind Johnson, Freiermuth, and Claypool, well behind them. And the one thing I'll say about his role is it's boom bust. So he'll probably have a game sometime in the near future where he catches 2 of 3 targets for like 90 yards and a score. But predicting that game is going to be exceedingly difficult, especially with the volatility at offense here. I think Pickens should be in your player pool, but he's a guy to be careful with because of how erratic he's going to be. Like, you wouldn't be surprised if he dropped a 0.
Yeah. Negative leverage score. in the optimal lineup under 15% of the time. I honestly think that's a little high. But he's obviously the third. I mean, he's the fourth receiving option because Freiermuth is clearly going to be utilized, especially by Trubisky dump down. I don't think he's getting away from Freiermuth, who is on the field a ton. We'll get to the tight ends in a minute, but I think Pickens is one of those boom bust players we're talking about because it's showdown, not because there's any actually high likelihoods he succeeds. Any other wide receivers you want to talk about for the Steelers before we switch it over?
I don't think so. They're not really rotating guys in the field. Like the next highest snap share is, let's see, Gunnar Olszewski, 14%, no targets. Yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, we can pass on that unless you're playing like the 150 in the milli maker. It makes sense to me. We kick it over to the Cleveland side. Amari Cooper is clearly the number one option we got to talk about. For all the reasons we talked about, passing game being low probability of hitting its ceiling tonight makes Amari Cooper a low probability option as well. We're still talking about the 16th highest wide receiver in terms of share of team targets and the second highest wide receiver in terms of share of team air yards. He's getting 45% of the Cleveland Browns air yards. And actually, give Jacoby Brissett some credit, 94% of Cooper's targets have been considered on target this year. I have a lot of Amari Cooper, although the leverage score is leaving something to be desired in our boom bust tool today.
I think part of the problem is, yeah, the air yards are there, but the volume's still not great. So he's being targeted downfield. I mean, I guess the volume's okay, but he's close in terms of pricing to a lot of players that are projecting a little bit better. He's close in opportunity to DPJ. No, DPJ doesn't have the same downfield role, but only 4 targets separate them this year. DPJ actually has 1 more red zone target. Very, very small sample with that at this point. That could flip at any point. But ultimately, how far ahead is Cooper from DPJ in this offense? I think that's a legit question we need to ask right now. And I think it somewhat rationalizes why he's coming in behind some of these other guys in terms of our tools.
So Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a player that he almost had an awesome touchdown called back kind of controversially. I thought he scored last week. So I guess that's where we got to talk about him. He looks good in our tools, obviously. 5,400 salary on DraftKings, that looks good. Ownership sitting around 20%, so he's going to be pretty popular. Talk about his role in the offense and how he could succeed even on a windy night.
Yeah, I think overall he's popular because of his price. So when you look at opportunity, at least what he's received so far this year in that price range, he's pretty clearly a guy you want to be targeting a little bit. As far as his role tonight, if we just look at the 2-game sample this year, Amari is being used a little more downfield. If you think the wind and the weather is an issue, DPJ, who's being used a little more around the line of scrimmage, could be a potential thing to evaluate. Ultimately, I think this normalizes a little bit. They're both players that can work downfield and intermediately. Cooper, we've seen that throughout his career. So I wouldn't be breaking ties there. To me, it just comes down to the price. And you don't really have to decide between them based on their salaries. I think you could play them both if you wanted. Just comes down to roster construction and how the rest of your build looks. If you're paying up for like Naji or something, you're probably also not getting Cooper unless you really prioritize it. Then DPJ might be an option. So it's kind of based on how you build.
I'm muted. Sorry there. Then you got to start considering players like David Bell, who I have some of. And then it's probably the tight ends after that. Anthony Schwartz. No. Is he even playing tonight? No, he is.
He's active. I don't know if he'll play.
We got him projected for a lot of points, man. We got him projected for like 1.3. This could be huge.
It could be David Bell, though.
Okay, so talk to me about David Bell. In terms of weighted opportunity rating, which combines target share and air yard share, nothing really special. But I think you were talking about Bell on the show with Laffy this morning, and I think he's got a shot here in the slate. What do you see here from David Bell?
I think he plays a limited role, but this is ultimately a guy they still have invested draft capital in more recently than Schwartz. Schwartz was a decently high pick, mainly because of his athleticism. He's a burner, but he essentially had a lost rookie year. And I don't know. They still felt the need to invest in more draft capital at receiver this year, high draft capital. Bell's the exact opposite. He's this big, slow, lumbering, big slot receiver. But overall, I think he may be brought along slow. He was injured essentially all preseason, came back late for this team, but he's a rookie that they have high hopes for. So you could see the snap share rise. Either way, I think he's a guy that's on the field 20 to 30% minimum of the snaps. And that's a guy you can throw darts on in large field tournaments. Definitely not in cash games or small field, but in larger field stuff, Bell should be in your player pool.
That makes sense to me. That definitely does. And it's funny, on Player Profiler, they have the best comparable player, which for young players is really based on their athleticism metrics, not about how they play. But the comp is Anquan Boldin. And I feel like last year was the first year where I didn't hear like, oh, he could be the next Anquan Boldin, which was one of the most cliche things to say about a young receiver for a decade. And there wasn't anyone like Anquan Boldin with mid to low tier athleticism who just broke every tackle he could find.
Yeah, I think Anquan Boldin should be erased from player comps. It's like comparing people to like Jerry Rice.
One of the best open field tackle breakers you will ever see at the wide receiver position. A joy to watch Anquan Boldin just muscle people out of the way. And David Bell, I hope you can have a career, a night like Anquan Boldin had like a career. Any other wide receivers we really need to hit here? I'm looking down the list. It's not looking pretty after that, no?
No, I think we hit them all.
Okay. We got to get to tight ends. We got to get to defense and kickers. We got about 7 minutes before lock here. Thanks so much for hanging out. We got 600 plus likes. We can get that up. We got almost 2,000 people watching. Thank you, by the way. But we get that. Just hit the like button. Just, cleanse yourself. Get that out of your system. I know. It's like, it's kind of appeasing people who have to ask for it. It is literally on my checklist. I have to ask for it. You know this, but it not only does it help me out, it helps us out and the YouTube algorithm out in knowing who to give this to next. Our future fans are thankful to you, our current fans. And by the way, we have an awesome deal going on right now. The primetime code, getting you a week full of primetime slates. That's tonight, the Thursday night slate over at the premium tools for all of these slates. And we got Sunday night for you. We got Monday night for you. A great time to check it out over there. That's all one word, primetime, PRIMETIME. Packaged for only $1 for a whole week, valid through September 29th only. Get in on the action. And honestly, Thursday is the best day to do it. I know we're late. Get in there. Again, promo code primetime. Tight ends are really interesting here because we got Freiermuth has been way more involved than I expected, especially with the quarterback change. And then you also got Harrison Bryant, who, sorry, David and Njoku fans, but Harrison Bryant's been utilized way more in terms of air yard share, even though David Njoku has the snap share. So let's start on the Pittsburgh side. What do you think of Freiermuth in this slate?
I think he's solid. In terms of our tools, I like to compare him to some of the other receivers. Outside of Deontay Johnson, he is the best leverage scorer. So just looking at his role and his price, I think he makes a little more sense than George Pickens for sure, because his role is so erratic. But Chase Claypool is also higher. So Pat Freiermuth would be third on that list. It's Johnson 1, Claypool 2, Freiermuth 3, as long as I'm looking at the most updated version. I'm honestly not sure at this point. But all that to say, I like Freiermuth. I like him as an attachment to this offense.
I can't really get away from him. I'm sad the salary is a little high, but he has the third most air yards on the team as a tight end and the second most targets, the highest red zone targets, albeit 2, the highest end zone targets, albeit 2. Tight ends score touchdowns on showdown slates. This is a scientific fact that we all know. And so Freiermuth is my pick for a touchdown tonight for sure. And I definitely have a ton of him in my lineups today. I'm not playing any other Pittsburgh tight end. So I guess Neil talked about Zach Gentry, who I did not realize was 6'8", and he's playing 30% of snaps. So if you're playing large field GPPs, we can talk about him. Are you playing any Zach Gentry, or would you be if you're playing large field?
Yeah, I'm not, but I can completely understand the rationale. It's just you're looking for a guy on the field.
Man on the field, playing football. Is Derek Watt in that category as well? Is he on the slate? Yeah, he is. 0.31.
That's one I won't be doing.
You won't be doing 0.31 fantasy points?
No.
For Derek Watt?
No,
we
Derek
got that
Watt
projected for you. Okay. All right. Missing out on Derek Watt. Didn't Xander Horvath start the slate off, the last Thursday night slate, with a fullback touchdown?
Xander Horvath was a running back in college. People don't know that.
Okay. All right.
He's not a career fullback. He's just a big boy who played the running back position in college.
Okay. He actually looks smooth out there. We got 3 minutes left, so I want to go over to the defenses and the kickers. Obviously, a good day to play defenses, and the kickers look good in our tools, but wind does not help kickers. So I think the floor is higher for defenses despite their natural volatility. Break down both teams' kicker and defenses. What are your favorites, least favorites? Or you're just not going there today? You're definitely, that's not the case.
Yeah, I'm going there. I prefer Cleveland's defense. One, I think they're better. Got a good pass rush, even without Clowney. Garrett's amazing. They have a ton invested in their secondary. It's not been good to start, but at some point, if their secondary doesn't perform better, that DC is going to get fired. And so all that to say, they have the talent. And then the game script should be in their favor. Pittsburgh, little less interested in, but still going to be playing a fair amount of them. We just see these games go haywire all the time. And Pittsburgh's defense is one I like too, and they've actually played pretty well without TJ Watt. So it's not hard to foresee Pittsburgh being a defense you need to. And you can honestly play them both if you really want.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just laughing. Watt is a Watt, though. Do you realize what you're saying? He's a Watt. Oh, it's true. Okay. I got sidetracked. I was looking at chat. I promise you I'm a good host. Were you talking about the tight ends for Cleveland, and was I just completely ignoring you?
No, I was not. We kind of addressed them in the beginning. Thought Harrison Bryant.
We talked about defense and kickers. I just completely lost my train of thought. It's been a long day. We're talking about defense and kicker. It's 2 minutes to lock. We got there. I honestly think the Pittsburgh defense is going to be fine without TJ Watt long term. Jordan, don't laugh at me, producer Jordan. That's not my style usually, but I think all of these from a leverage score at the captain position. Do you have the guts to play a kicker at captain if you're talking tournaments?
No,
you can't do it.
Can't do it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say maybe. I bet Neil Orfield has one kicker captain lineup.
I've never done that before.
Okay. All right.
They'd never win.
It's not happening. All right. Thank you guys. All right. We're at 8:14. We got 1 minute till lock. Any final words for the people about this crazy slate? We got football. It's weird football, but it's Thursday night. Thanks for hanging out.
Enjoy it, guys. Showdown is the reason we get up and we get excited for Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. Even those of you that aren't fans, I'm pumped. I can't wait to watch the game. Coastal Carolina is playing. That's my favorite college team. There's tons of good football on tonight. So if you get sick of that game, turn on some college. But as always, thank you guys for being here. Very much appreciate it.
Follow this man at Matt_Gajewski. A little forgetful, but my name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, and thank you so much to producer Jordan behind the glass, the best in the business and the best beats in the business. You hear it right now. Let's get out of here. Let's watch some great football. Pittsburgh and Cleveland coming up. Thanks for hanging out.